Hi folks. Well, there's talk of reopening things around the place. A slight easing of the lockdown. I'm honestly getting sick of talking about COVID, but I guess, like I keep saying, it's what's dominating the news at the moment, and it's certainly what's dominating our lives. But there is talk of a slight easing of the lockdown at the moment, folks. But of course, it's just going to be a temporary easing because they have plans for the second wave. We keep hearing about the second wave, and there will be a second wave, folks, because it's their plan for there to be one. Actually, a great thing I caught on one of Jeff's videos, Jeff Berwick's videos, someone sent him a report of another WHO document called, what's it called? A World at Risk, where it talks about 2 exercises that are being run this year. 2 exercises regarding a respiratory virus. I'll put a little bit of it in here so you can see what Jeff said about it.
This is from the World Health Organization's website. Their document is called A World at Risk. It's an annual report on global preparedness for health emergencies. Oh, thanks. Thanks, World Health Organization. And it came out in September 2019, so 2019, so last year, before any of this happened. And you might notice a big thing that they like to use as an image for the coronavirus right on the front cover. And also, very interesting, a lot of people all wearing masks. Well, you can read through the whole document. We'll have the link down below. This is all factual information, fact checkers. And here's their progress indicators by September 2020. So these are the things they want to be already in process by September of this year. And one of the points says the United Nations, including WHO, conducts at least 2 system-wide training and simulation exercises, including one for covering the deliberate release of a lethal respiratory pathogen. An exercise. If you haven't been paying attention, anytime the government or any sort of government-related, in this case you can call it a sort of a crony capitalist controlled government sort of related organization like the WHO, whenever they say they're doing an exercise and they say where or when, run, get the F out of there. Every time it's the actual thing. This has happened countless times.
It's quite interesting that that document would exist. And it shows what their plans are, folks. So they do plan for the second wave, but you know, one of the big things in the second wave that people have to watch out for is going to be civil unrest. Because that's what they're pushing for, folks, is civil unrest. You know, a lot of the stuff that we've seen here, the woman that was arrested just standing there with a sign in Sydney, the man who was arrested with his 2 children in Melbourne. On the opposite side of the road, he was just walking down the road waiting for his wife, and the police surrounded him, tackled him, put him to the ground and arrested him, falsely arrested him, and tried to take his children.
They're starting on kids again. Fathers with kids. Yeah, I am back. For his own protection, I'm taking a video. For his own, I don't know the gentleman, but for his own protection, he's got kids there. So I think for his own protection, I need to take a video as a citizen. That's ridiculous.
Everyone else, please move on. Go, Judith.
I'm for his own protection, I'm taking a video, mate.
I'm videoing, so it's fine.
Well, you're not video facing me. You're not video.
Everyone else is videoing as well.
Yep, that's
Thank
okay.
you. You've already said you want to move on.
Yeah, I am going to move on.
Now.
Look at this. Look at this. Με παιδί. Παίρνει το παιδί.
Oh my God! Fuck off!
at these kids. Oh, look at these kids.
Yeah, and they want to keep us safe, so they're trying to keep them
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Look at that.
That is disgusting.
I love taking children. Have you noticed that? In Sydney, the one person that they decided to harass and drag away was someone with a child, so they can terrorise the child and possibly get a chance to kidnap the child and make the child a ward of the state. That's what these people like to do. You know, unfortunately in the world that we face today, one of the biggest threats that exists in our society, the biggest threats to public health and safety, is unfortunately the police. A little bit of wind just come up, just as I get out into the nice spot. The wind hits me. I hope that's not affecting things too much. COVID, folks. COVID. Oh, something I want to bring up right now while I think of it is that I have opened a forum on my website. I put out a call a couple of talks ago for a forum, and someone has answered the call. I thank you to all the people who did answer the call. Actually, there was a lot of people who answered the call and said they would be happy to run a forum for me. I just took the first one who offered, and it's a guy called Adam, and he's made a beautiful forum for me. I'll put a link below. You can go and sign up to that if you want, or you can just go to thecrowhouse.com and you'll find the link there on my website. The forums are now operational, folks. You can go and sign up and have free speech. We can have our own forum. I don't need Facebook. So, as many of you probably know, I've been completely deplatformed from Facebook. I've also been deplatformed from Spotify. There was someone who was uploading my videos to Spotify, but they've all now been deleted by Spotify, and none of my new uploads will be going onto Spotify, folks. They're just not letting it happen. Something else that I spoke about was the house-to-house and possible removal of people in Ventura County. They've updated that a little bit and said, oh look, we're not going to be doing that, but I would suspect that they are. And an interesting side note of what's happening in California, folks, was just the other day was the introduction of Bill HR 6666. You can't make this shit up. And it's basically a bill saying effectively that if you're collecting welfare from the state, they're bringing in mandatory testing, and if you are collecting welfare from the state of California, if you're collecting government welfare, you will need to be subject to this mandatory COVID testing in order to receive your welfare payments. I think that's happening from June 1st. You have to be in there for testing by June 1st or something like that, or your welfare payments will be cancelled. That's a nice touch, isn't it? Put 30 million people out of work in the United States and put them all on welfare, and then tell them that if they don't get their COVID test, their welfare will be cancelled. Come and get tested, folks. Come for your COVID tests with these COVID test kits that are testing things like pawpaws and goats, and I think even inanimate objects. I think they even tried it on a glass and a bottle, and they got a positive test result for COVID-19. So come and get tested by the government-approved testing kits, and if you test positive for COVID, we may isolate you from your family. And of course, the test kits we're using, as I said, have been testing pawpaws, mangoes, goats, glasses, bottles. I believe engine oil, they even tested positive for COVID. So, you know, what a scam, folks. It's such a scam, and that's the way they're running it, and that's what they're doing to people in California, and I would think that it's probably going to come to other states as well, because that's just what they do, folks. That's just the way they run things. That's just the way they like to run things. I'd also like to put out a shout to a friend of mine, Steve Falconer. He's got a channel called Space Busters on YouTube. He put out a video called, what's it called? Biochemistry Debunks Corona. Fantastic video. Really good. He's done his homework. He's really been putting out some good stuff regarding this whole pandemic, folks, and I recommend you go and look at that video. I'll put a link below. You can check my favourites. You'll find it in my favourites as well. You should always check my favourites, folks. There's lots of good stuff in my favourites, and that's why I put it there, so that people can come along and check it. You know, in case I didn't get a chance to mention it. I mean, so much stuff happens that I forget. And a lot of the stuff that I put in there gets deleted pretty quickly as well, because YouTube's good at that lately. An interesting report I saw on the news as well with Bill and Melinda Gates. And speaking of Gates, I'd also want to put out another shout out to a guy called Paul Dallimore. Paul Dallimore is the guy who did the Bill Gates Joker meme that I've used a couple of times. He's a great artist. He's got a website, pauldallimore.com. I'll put a link below. If you can give him some support, please do so. He's a great artist and he needs our support at the moment. Everybody needs support from everybody at the moment, folks. We're in pretty difficult times. So please go and check his art out. If you need any artwork, maybe give him a call. Send him a message and see what happens. But this talk of Melinda Gates, she was on the news and they're asking her, you know, when can we ease the lockdown? As if she's an authority on this. I mean, when did the Gates family suddenly become the leaders of World Health and the people that we ask for medical advice, and the sort of people that governments would be asking when they can ease the lockdown in their own countries? Well, it's according to when Bill and Melinda Gates say they can. Seems very strange, folks, but something that I find remarkable about that interview with Melinda Gates is the necklace that she's wearing. I mean, not only what she's saying, but the necklace that she's wearing. Have a look at the necklace, folks. There she is on the news wearing an upside down cross on a necklace, you know, and saying that women need to not be carers in the home. They need to get back out into the workforce, basically. She's pushing this sort of stuff. You know, women are being degraded and demoralised because they're the main caregivers in the home, and they're also the main caregivers in hospital because they're nurses, and they shouldn't be stuck doing caregiving at home. They should be working, and, you know, demeaning the role of mothers, as they like to do, as the Rockefellers like to do, all part of the Rockefeller plan, which is what women's liberation was all about, folks. It isn't because they wanted women to be free and have equal rights. It's because they wanted women to be part of the workforce, because they were only able to tax half of the population before they got women out into the workforce. And it didn't give them access to people's children at such an early age because they were in the home being looked after by the mothers. When equal rights for women came out as what it was presented as being, it was simply about being able to double the taxable income for the parasites that run the system, and being able to get the women to put their children into daycare at a much earlier age so they can be influenced and indoctrinated into the system at a much earlier and much more impressionable age. That's what all that was about, folks, and they admit that openly themselves. But yeah, you know, we're going to see a slight easing of this lockdown. But it's not going to go back to normal. It's never going to go back to normal. It's not going to go back to the way it was. They're going to very much restrict travel. I would think that, you know, this is the reason they're saying it's going to take a certain amount of time for a vaccine. They're talking a year to 18 months. I don't think you'll see travel open back up until that happens. And when it does happen, you'll need a proof of vaccination in order to travel, I would very much suspect. So I'd say this is the end of my world travel, folks. I don't think I'll be travelling much after this year, if that's the way it's going to be, because I certainly won't be accepting any vaccinations. But I don't think a lot of people won't be accepting any vaccinations, folks, and I think there's a good chance that they may fail at this. There's a good chance that a lot of people may push back. We've certainly seen a lot of pushback right around the world, and even here in Australia, and I'm proud of the Australian people for getting out there and pushing back against this. You know, it's really good to see them doing it. You know, I mean, I don't particularly think protesting on the street is the right idea. Personally, I think non-compliance is a better idea. Supporting your communities and disconnecting from the system. Throw away your smartphone, folks. You know, a lot of people say to me, I couldn't listen to your shows if I didn't have a smartphone. Well, you could get a computer, get a laptop, get everything you had before you had the smartphone. You don't need to be taking the internet out with you everywhere you go. Get a flip phone so you can make phone calls, so you're in contact. A phone that you can't put apps on. And just use a home computer or a laptop at home. You know, it's a lot better way of doing things, and that way you're not trackable and traceable. You know, and you're in a position where you can't comply with their rules. You can't comply with their tracing app. You can't do all this stuff simply because you don't have the means to do it, because you don't participate in the smart system. You know, I don't. I'll never have one. I'll never use them, folks. I will not be part of that. You know, people who are activists and anarchists and all sorts of stuff, but they still use a smartphone, they're not seeing the bigger picture, you know, because if you're speaking out against the New World Order system, well, the New World Order system is the smartphone. Without the smartphone, none of it can happen. You know, how many people are prepared to give up their smartphones? You know, how many people are prepared to see what technology has done to them? You know, technology is very seductive. That's how they get you in, folks. They don't have to, you know, force you to be part of this smart system. We do it ourselves. We do it because we get seduced by the technology. It's that type of technology. That's what it's designed for. The dopamine addictions, everything these things do, is designed to seduce us into this system. But it's our choice as to whether we're going to do that, you know. The question is, how many people are prepared to make that choice? You know, most people speak out against the system, but they want to keep the smart grid in place. And Trump's done some interesting things. You know, he seems to have taken more control of the Fed. A few months ago, I put out a show where I said, goodbye Fed, hello Trump coin. And he seems to have taken that a little bit further. And there's every indication that while all this has been going on, he's basically has taken control of the Fed. And that's a good thing. But then you've got to wonder where it's going to go. It's all very well to take control of the Fed, but you know, with some of the other stuff that he's doing, these new laws that are coming in California to make it mandatory to get tested for COVID. Yeah, I mean, the only politician I've actually seen speaking the truth about COVID is the Italian politician that I put on the end of the last clip. You know, if Trump was serious about all this, he'd be screaming like that. He'd be calling this out for what it is, and Fauci would be in jail. You know, I'm told Fauci is under isolation now because he's caught his own disease. So there's still the push that this is a biologically created disease and all that sort of stuff. I don't think that's how it works, folks. I think they biologically altered, they put some sort of a marker on some type of coronavirus and put it in a vaccine so that people who would have this marker would test positive. I don't know. I mean, viruses, when you look at the work of so many virologists, so many doctors, the work of Andrew Kaufman and so many people, viruses don't work this way. Even when you look at germ theory, the whole concept that viruses and germs are what cause illness, you go and look up germ theory, folks, and ask yourself why it's still called germ theory. It's called germ theory because it's not proven yet. You know, they've been working off this for years, you know, all based on the research of Louis Pasteur, who decided that germs were causing all of these problems and that we should completely destroy the nutritional properties of milk before we drink it. And it's all been kind of riding off the back of that. But it's still a theory, and I don't agree with germ theory because it's an unproven theory. And when I look at the damage that vaccines have done to people, you know, the rise of autism. In 1991, it was one in 100 children, or one in 1,000 children had autism or something. Now it's like 1 in 3, 1 in 10. I mean, some form of autism. But then they're calling everything autism now. If you show any emotion, it's autism. If you can think outside the box, it's autism, you know. If you're anything that the system doesn't want or doesn't require, and you're not a functional cog in the big machine, it's autism. Shouldn't they be calling a love of art and music autism? I mean, that's just the way these people operate, folks. So You know, I just don't agree with germ theory. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing from a lot of the doctors. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that I heard from Judy Mikovits. But then what she said about Fauci and the stuff she exposed there, I mean, this is all very key and relevant information. Something else I heard good about Trump is that he is spending $3 billion on organising to buy food from American farmers, food, dairy, meat from American farmers, and get it to food banks, and that's a good thing. Whether that's simply part of the plan to destroy the economy and how they're going to do that if social distancing is still in place is another question. I mean, how are they going to transport the food to the market and do any of this if all these social distancing rules are still in place? It's going to be very difficult to do that, isn't it? You know, and again, I'm not hearing him say the real stuff. I'm not hearing him say things such as we heard from the politician in Italy. It's getting quite windy out here, folks. So maybe I'll leave it here for now and just make this a short report. I don't think I can get out of the wind. I'm trying, but it seems to be coming up. It's been quite windy and rainy the last few days. That's why I haven't done any walking talks. But yeah, maybe I'll leave it here for now, folks. And I'll come back and talk to you again tomorrow. This might be a nice spot. Bit of traffic noise though. No, I think it's still windy. But there are people that are bringing us the right information, folks. There's still a lot of good people on YouTube that are bringing you the right information. Like I said, Steve Falconer from Spacebusters is doing a great job. Jeff Berwick's still doing a great job. Del Bigtree is doing a great job as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Del Bigtree's work. He's been doing some great work on exposing this. And it's so obviously a scam, folks. You know, the politicians are saying it themselves. You know, we're fudging the numbers. We're calling anything COVID. I mean, I don't know how much people, you know, how much evidence people need to see what a scam this is, and to see how important it is for us to see this as an opportunity. You know, the big problem is what's going to be coming. You know, the coming famine, which is coming. And as I've said earlier, you know, America is the big prize in that. So even with what Trump's doing, spending this money to get food to food banks, you need to get the people self-sufficient again. You need to get the people back doing their jobs and doing the stuff that is going to keep the system flowing. You know, even just spending all that money on food and taking it to food banks now, I mean, what is that depriving on getting from supermarkets and getting to supermarkets? And again, how much of this is going to be possible if all this social distancing is in place? And you watch, folks, the social distancing won't go away. You know, even if they release the lockdown, they're going to want you to keep 1.5 metres apart from everybody else, because what it's all about is surveillance, and that's the way the surveillance system works. But even if they do release the lockdown, it won't be for long, because the second wave will come, and then the lockdown will become even more dramatic. And I would also suggest that when they do ease the lockdown in your area, this is a window of opportunity for you to get out of big cities. If you're somewhere in a big city, you know, it's an opportunity for you to get yourself to high ground, get yourself to somewhere safe. You know, you don't want to be in a big city when this whole thing comes to its final conclusion. Because no matter what they do, you know, they can't get it back to normal. No matter what they do, they can't get things to return to a situation where, you know, everything's just going to go back to the way it was. They've already broken the supply chains down too far for that to happen. You know, 30 million people unemployed in the United States, more people dying from suicide and, you know, other things than are dying from COVID, and we haven't even seen the beginning of that yet. You know, over the next year, you know, the suicides, the amount of domestic violence, the amount of damage that's going to be done due to the breakdown of society because of this, you know, we haven't even seen the beginning of it yet. That's the part you need to watch out for. You know, and with the deaths from people failing to get hospital treatment, You know, people failing to get surgery because all the hospitals are closed due to COVID. You know, all of this sort of stuff, all these knock-on effects, we haven't even seen these begin yet. You know, and it's important to, you know, realise that, sure, there's a big awakening happening, but even with this big awakening, a lot of people are still turning to government to save them. You know, the very people that caused the problem. You know, you're never going to find a solution from the source of the problem, folks. We need to start thinking for ourselves. And so, you know, it's important for people to admit that not everybody's going to wake up. You know, and if you are awake, you know, it might be a time to consider, you know, like I said, looking after yourself and making sure yourself and your family are safe through what's coming. Get yourself to high ground, get out of the cities, get yourself self-sufficient. If you can find a community in your area that is awake and aware, you know, support these people, support that community, see if you can get involved with it. You know, so I think that's something that people need to, you know, be aware of. Be aware that not everybody's going to wake up, and if you sit there, you know, trying to wake people up and leave it to the last minute, well, you may end up in a situation where, you know, you're going to be stuck yourself and not going to be able to get out of where you find yourself. So, you know, it's just important to get a bit of focus, folks, and it's important to see that we are pretty much in the final hour with this. You know, even with that HR 6666, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. You know, Bill Gates releases his patent, the 666 patent, to create the cryptocurrency based on people's biometrics. And then we have this 6666 bill in California. They seem to like their sixes, folks. But you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. But yeah, you know, we're very much in the final hour here, folks. So it's important to realise that not everybody's going to wake up. You know, some people simply won't. You know, and the police are being as brutal as they are because they want to push for civil disobedience. If they can get enough civil disobedience before this lockdown is eased, then that will ensure the lockdown is not eased at all. So, you know, problem, reaction, solution, folks. Hegelian dialectic. They're only pushing you because they want you to push back at this stage. You know, and the best pushback is to disconnect. Throw away your smart devices. You know, don't download their tracking apps. And sure, tell people that it's all fake and it's a hoax, because it is. But you know, if you want the pandemic to go away, the plandemic, turn off your television, throw away your smartphone, and it's all over. It's all gone. And so is their New World Order system. You know, if they say, well, you've got to have it, you've got to have your smartphone to do all this stuff, say, well, no, we don't want it. And if you're claiming we do, well, that's abuse of office. You've now overstepped your mark, and we need to take the necessary steps to have this government dismissed, because we now have a loss of confidence in this government's ability to govern, and this government's, you know, lack of corruption. We have a loss of confidence in that. We think you're all corrupt because you think this is all a plan and a hoax to crash the world economy and to usher in a police state, and that's not what we implore you to do. So no, we're not going to do it. Fuck you. It's as simple as that, folks. You know, we seem to have forgotten those words. The word no, it's a wonderful word. But anyway, folks, I think I'll leave it there for now. It is getting late in the day. As I said, there's a forum open on my website now. If you do go and check my website, you'll find links to MeWe, you'll find links to Minds, to Library, to BitChute, all the places you can find me now. And people who are sending me Facebook links, you know, I can't open them, folks. There's no point sending me Facebook links because I'm barred from Facebook and can't open any Facebook links. That's just the way it is. But you will find me on the Crowhouse Forums, and do sign up to that. We did have some really good forums that were happening back when I first started the radio show, but I lost the moderators and I ended up getting overrun with bots, and they just ended up, you know, becoming unmanageable. So I closed them down. But now there is a new forum, and that's being run completely off the website. It's got its own moderator already set up, the guy who created it. It's all about free speech, and any suggestions you have for the forums, any boards you might like to see opened or anything like that, feel free to speak to us or make a post or offer a suggestion, anything like that. But please do go and sign up to the new Crowhouse Forums. Please do sign up to the mailing list that I've got there on the website as well. I'll figure out how to use it soon. I haven't actually had a chance to look at it yet. And thank you for all the emails and all the information that people send me. There's no chance that I can answer all these emails that I'm getting, folks. Please bear with me on that. I mean, it's not possible for one man to be able to answer this amount of information that's coming in. So as much as I do appreciate the emails you send me, and I appreciate the kind words and the words of support, I'm simply not able to answer emails at this time. There's just too many. And once I start, I mean, I could sit there and spend a couple of days just going through emails. It'd probably take me a whole day just to get through the ones that I've got flagged that I desperately want to answer. So, but yeah, they keep coming in. Every morning I wake up, I've got 200 or 300 or 400 more emails. So it's kind of getting unmanageable. But I'm doing my best. But anyway, thank you for all the information you send me. Thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. Thank you for sticking by me for so long and through all this. And you know, we're at a pretty interesting time now, folks. Like I said, we're in the final hour, so it's anybody's guess we're going to go from this point. But I think, you know, as I said, it's a huge opportunity, folks. If people choose to get involved in the right way and push back in the right way, it's a huge opportunity. So, you know, we may yet see a huge awakening happen from this. I mean, certainly I'm seeing it. Even if people are a little scared to talk, you know, I'm seeing more and more people now who realise that this is a complete farce, it's a complete hoax. And, you know, and the brutality of the police here in Australia is sort of going a long way to help people wake up to what's really happening. But again, they're doing that in order to get us to push back, because if we can, you know, push back, if they can get us to, you know, lapse into civil unrest, then you're going to find that the lockdown won't ever stop. And that's what they want, folks. So be careful of how you're being played. Push back, but push back in the right way. But anyway, folks, I'll look forward to speaking to you again next time. Please take very good care. Until then, in luck, cash.